G'day guys and welcome back to Jans_Gaming for another Dokkan Battle video. So for today's video here we had the official announcement for part 2. All their details got tweeted out, so we know that the Beast and GAMMAS banners are not far away. We still don't have an exact time, but I thought this is a perfect time for us to jump in and just quickly review their kits here. So we're going to start off with Beast Gohan. He's the one that everyone will likely be summoning for straight off the bat. So awesome leader skill. He's got superheroes, which is just getting buff after buff at the moment. Bond of Master of Disciple, Miraculous Awakening for 3 key 170, and then we've got Entrusted Will or Movie Heroes as the extra 30% there. So for our super attack effects, we've got greatly raises attack and raises defense for 1 turn, so we've got the 30% defensive buff there. And then for the 18 key, we greatly raise attack and raise defense for 4 turns, so obviously that's good, multi-turn buff in there. And then we've got the unit super attack. So when you've got a Piccolo on rotation, you get the greatly raised attack, raises defense for 4 turns, the same there, but you then get mega colossal damage and raise all allies' chance of performing a crit by 20% for 1 turn. So pretty OP mechanic there. Also disables enemy action once. So again, a really powerful mechanic there. It doesn't happen all the time, but there's the chance that that can be the super attacks. So you can pretty much just ghost usher that boss super. So for the passive here, it's got an entrance animation which is key plus 8, chance of performing a crit plus 40%, and reduces damage by 40% for 5 turns from his entry. So on top of that, he also has the key plus 3, attack and defense 250%, and guards all attacks. So guard and damage reduction together makes for a very defensive unit. Gets an additional 50% attack when attacking, chance of performing a crit plus 20% when key is 24. You'll see why that's so easy, but you got an additional 80% and reduces damage received by 20% if you're at 24 key when receiving an attack. He gets 1 key per key sphere obtained, so that's why it is so easy to get this guy to that 24 key mark, where you're then going to get the extra defense and damage reduction. So on top of that, launches an additional super attack and all allies 3 key within the same turn after receiving an attack. So that's like the Tech Orange Piccolo effect. You have this guy in slot 1 and it gives you a lot more versatility in setting up your orbs and who you want to get key spheres for. Within the same turn after receiving an attack, yada yada. Key plus 1 up to 5, and within the same turn, attack and chance of performing a crit plus 20% with each attack received. So this guy gets hit 5 times before he attacks. He then has a guaranteed crit there, and that also does play into his target mechanics. So an additional chance of performing a crit plus 20%, that's what we just went over, and then an additional 20% damage reduction, and all allies 2 key starting from the turn in which this character performs his 5th attack or receives his 8th from battle. So not the hardest condition to fulfill there, because a lot of these bosses are pumping out the attacks, and they generally are in slot 1. So that works to get Gohan his extra damage reduction there, as well as the key. So as I mentioned, he does have an active skill. It's key plus, well, he gets 24 key, defense an additional 158%, and then all attacks are aimed at Gohan. So just saves the whole rotation, because you know that this guy's not going to be taking damage. And that one can be activated next attacking turn after receiving an attack. It's once only. In terms of his links, we've got All in the Family, Saiyan Warrior Race, Infighter, Shocking Speed, Prepare for Battle, Fierce Battle, and Legendary Power. So really common link set there. And then 6 million teams. We won't go over those, but know that this guy is going to have a hefty team building guide, which we love to see. So on the other side, we've got the Carnival banner, and that will be for the INT Gamma 1 and 2. So I actually do quite like their leader skill. They are a superheroes flat 200%. So as I said, a category that's getting an insane amount of buffs, and they do have a number of stages to this unit. So for their 12 key super, they raise attack and defense for 1 turn. On their 18 key, that becomes a greatly raised, so the 50%. They get key 3 and 125% attack and defense. So start of turn, that obviously should tell you that they're not a slot 1 unit. They get an additional 3 key and 125% when HP is 30% or more, which is going to be more often than not. And this is what we love from them. So they are a superheroes joined forces and defender of justice, support for 3 key and 50%. So that's a huge buff there, especially for someone like Gohan. They get a chance of performing a crit plus 30% and launches an additional super attack up to 2 with per key INT key sphere obtained. So you want to be getting them INT key spheres, but they also do get a chance of performing a crit plus 12% and the additional attack that has a great chance, so 70% of becoming a super with an AGL or STR key spheres. So you definitely want to be getting these guys INT, AGL or STR key spheres because that's going to help them enter their standby. But they also get an additional 50% attack and defense and reduces damage received by 30% from the turn in which the character performs their third attack in battle. So you get those 2 INT key spheres, you can get a triple or a quad super turn, and you also get that extra attack and defense and damage reduction. So works really well there. They had the standby, so you can stand by for 4 turns, which they have the counter per attack performed by allies, and that can be activated when HP is 70% or less, or after performing 3 or more attacks in battle. So a lot of the time this is just going to be their next turn. So from there you go into this standby Gamma. Their super attacks are the same, except on the 18 key you raise allies defense by 50% for 1 turn. For their passive, it's the 6 key attack and defense to 50% and reduce damage received by 50%. So that's obviously really, really good. You got an additional 50% attack and defense when attacking. You've still got that support there, so that's 3 key and 50%. Chance of performing a crit plus 30% and launches an additional super attack, which again is up to 2 per INT key sphere obtained. And then you've got the same thing with the AGL STR key spheres that we had before as well. So pretty much we're just juicing up the damage reduction with this standby here. But what you can do is you can then activate the standby attack, which is where Gamma 2 goes all out, and it is a big old damager because you got the raise attack by 100% per charge count. Then causes super ultimate damage and stuns the enemy, and then you exchange into Gamma 1. So that can be activated the next turn if you really wanted, or you could save that one up. So yeah, if you've got a lot of units that can perform a lot of super attacks, that's going to do some insane damage. But as you can see, the 12 key remains the same here. The 18 key again greatly raises attack and defense, but then raises superclass allies defense by 50% for 2 turns. So we've got the multi-turn buff there, which is awesome. Yeah, it's just unreal when units are able to provide that buff to 2 turns. For the passive, we got 3 key, 150% attack and defense, and reduces damage by 15%. Plus an additional 3 key and 150% attack and defense, and 15% damage reduction when HP is 30% or more. So that gets you back up to that 30. You then get the additional 50% when attacking. We still provide that 3 key 50% support. And then yeah, it changes AGL key spheres to INT key spheres. We've then got a chance of performing a crit up to 100% and reduces damage received by 10% up to 50% per INT or STR key sphere obtained. So if you can get the full INT or AGL key spheres requirement, get 5 of them, these guys can have 80% damage reduction while providing 3 key 50% support. Like, he's so good. I know there's a bit of hoops to jump through to get to this Gamma 1, but in terms of a support unit, he's absolutely insane and definitely brings a lot of life back to someone like the STR Gamma 1. So then we do have one more unit. This is the banner unit for the STR Beast, and it is a Krillin and 18. So they're a joined forces battle of wits category, sub-lead I guess we'll call it. For their super attack, they got the 50% attack and defense for 1 turn, and then lowers attack and defense of the enemy. for their passive skill, they got 2 key, 180% attack and defense. They've got a medium chance or 30% chance of evading attacks. They also have a chance of performing a crit and chance of evading enemies' attack plus 30%. And superheroes category allies key 1 when there is another superheroes category ally attacking the same turn. So that's pretty much just going to be all the time. So these guys do have a 60% chance to dodge there. You're not really running these guys on any team other than superheroes, I wouldn't have thought. So they get an additional 30% with each attack evaded, up to 90%. So that coincides with that 60% chance to dodge there. They also get an additional 180% defense within the same turn before receiving attacks. So full dodge build is definitely going to be the wave with these guys. They also are a superhero support, so they give superheroes attack and defense 50% for 2 turns if HP is 50% or more at the start of the turn. So pretty much you just want to rock with these guys as a floating support. Superheroes is getting an insane amount of buffs, so I'm not sure if they'll make it on the team, but they are really going to help to make some shenanigans happen, because look at that, 50% support for 2 turns. Imagine you combine that with the defensive support of Gamma 1 that we just went over. Like, that could get pretty nutty. But let me know your thoughts on the 3 units down below and how excited you are for STR Beast Gohan to drop. So thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to keep up with the content, and hopefully I'll catch you all on the next video.